Welcome back, everybody. Happy Monday. Hope everybody had an awesome Mother's Day weekend. I'm behind as per usual, and I really don't have an excuse anymore. All things considered, been playing with new gear as per usual, and I feel like I just gotta really stop making a habit of consistently just buying new gear to review on this channel, because at the end of the day, I do not do this full time at all. I am solely buying these things out of my own pocket. And while I've started to do a little bit more commercial work in a sense, it's been more so building out my portfolio, but I've been lacking something. And for those of you who are not new to the channel and you're returning, one, welcome back. If you're new here, hey, what's up? My name's Chris. I am a freelance photographer, and I do this content creation whole thing in my free time just because it gives me a creative outlet. But when I first started photography, I started in the Canon space, as I mentioned a million times over in the past. And when I got back into photography about a year and a half ago, I decided to make some changes to my gear. I went from, the Canon world with full frame DSLR. I wasn't in the mirrorless space, to ended up in Fuji. And over the course of this channel, sorry, my allergies are also killing me, so I'm just gonna cough a million times on this video. But moved into Fuji, started exploring different Fuji cameras. I also had a Sony ZV-E10 at one point, just because I was playing around with this whole YouTube and videography thing to an extent. And so I've gone through a few different Fujis at this point, and I'm just indecisive. I think it's a gear acquisition syndrome, or GAS, as a lot of other, creators call it, because it's constantly wanting to find the next best thing that you're going to want and that you have to have, because it's this social media push of wanting to have the latest and greatest. And I've learned, especially with Fuji, that I've loved some of the cameras that aren't the latest and greatest. All things considered, all of my Fuji gear is also, for the most part, the latest and greatest, which is, I'm kind of a hypocrite when saying that, because, as I'm shooting this on my XH2, which outside of the XH2S is the flagship in the XH line for Fuji, and this camera is an absolute powerhouse. And then I also have, I wanted that more content creator, just smaller, friendly camera, which was my XM5, which I do love this camera. It's limited, but the specs on this, especially with the open gate, are awesome. But why did I buy something else when I have all of this gear? Well, it's because as I've started doing some more, like I said, commercial type work, I was missing something, and that was something that Fuji could not offer me. And it was being in the full frame world. And I've been eyeing this camera since it came out just over a year ago, I think just over a year ago at this point. But I decided to make a huge step up in some of the gear that I'm using. And while it doesn't offer as many of the specs that my XH2 does, it was definitely a little bit of a financial mistake, even though I love it. I wanted something still compact, full frame, wanted something new. So here's what we got today, or more so a week ago. And this is the Sony A7C2. Why did I buy this camera? I'm not gonna lie, Fuji's autofocus isn't as bad as everybody says it is. It's not. It works for everything I'm doing. It works for these videos. I love my XH2, and I wish it was a little bit smaller, because I've been debating if I should get rid of the XH2 and maybe just get XT4, because it does have the flip out screen, or even just use my XM5. But this thing, it shoots in 8K, and I love that. And while the Sony does not shoot in 8K, and it even shoots, I think, 4K 60 in the crop mode, which is kind of crazy, I wanted something for photography that was full frame. I've wanted this camera for a while, like I said, and so far I am just having an absolute blast with it. Of course, the lawn is being mowed at the worst possible time. I don't know why. But all things considered, this is not the most, I mean, it's a travel friendly, pretty awesome setup, but I decided to step up. I did buy a few lenses to start out with. I started out with the Tamron 35 2.8, which is a pretty good lens. I can't complain about it too much, but then I wanted my traditional nifty 50, so I ended up with the Sony 50 millimeter 1.8, which that lens at $200 new is just way too much of a steal not to buy for the Sony system, especially with the 50 millimeter 1.2 coming in at like $2,300 and the 1.4 coming in at like $1,300. I just went with a 1.8. Pretty much everything I did in professional world, I always did on the Canon nifty 50 1.8 anyway. That was a spectacular lens. I like the Sony lens, but I wanted something that could definitely keep up with today's video, especially for this new A7C2 with the AI features. And I picked up the new and questionable 24 to 50 2.8, and it's very interesting because of the fact that to go to 24 it actually extends versus a lot of zoom lenses zoom in and you get closer. This starts at 50. I think this is an awesome lens. It's pretty much a G Master from what I've understood. It's missing one of the extra customizable buttons, but it has the declickable aperture ring. It has the fixed 2.8. The bokeh on this is awesome. I've been using this, I only got this lens this weekend, but I had been using, the A7C2 with the nifty 50 as well as the Tamron 35 2.8. And I'm gonna show some photos that I've taken so far, over the course of the past 2 weeks since picking up this camera. I think this camera is totally worth the hype that people say it is worth. I mean, it is the A7 IV sensor with a lot of the features that the A7 V has. And, granted, I've not used either of those cameras, but I was familiar with Sony's ecosystem roughly from my time having the ZV-E10. And I will say that going back to it, Fuji's autofocus is not as bad as everybody says it is, but Sony's autofocus is as good as everybody says it is. Like this, I'm barely missing a shot. The tracking is insane. The video specs or the video quality is insane. I am loving this camera, God, for what it is so far. And I think I'll probably end up moving towards the Sony route in the future. And I know a lot of people have done that, and I don't think I'll ever get rid of a Fuji because the Fuji color science is just out of this world. I don't care who disagrees with me on this one. Fuji has the best color science. The photos are incredible. Everything about it is just dreamy. And with the Sony, I've been able to emulate very close to my favorite simulation on Fuji, which is classic cube and negative. And I think it looks good. I do think it looks very good, but I'm starting to understand why people say that Sony is so clinical and so commercial, because it is just, they are so sharp. And for me, it's almost like there's something like a little bit lacking as compared to my Fujis, because the Fuji cameras and the lenses and the colors that come out of Fujis are just, they have soul to them. And Sony doesn't have as much of that. So that's why I think it's necessary to have a little bit of combo of both. And I know clearly there can be so much that's done in, Lightroom or Photoshop, especially with the larger files from Sony, and especially with them being full frame. Like the depth of field is awesome, like the 2.8. While I would love to get the 35 1.4, I wanted to start out with the zoom lens, especially for video, because I wanted to have something a little bit more versatile. And the 24 is just wide enough for talking heads, which I haven't done on this camera yet, but I've tested it out so far. But I think that for professional work, Sony is going to be my go-to. For personal work, Fuji is going to be my go-to. And while I have been using this so much more than my Fujis right now, it's really for me to get over that learning curve. And I would say if anybody is stepping into the full frame world, if you're debating between Canon or Sony, you're going to have great options. either way. For me personally, I wanted something I wasn't as familiar with, and I wanted something that would allow me to continually keep learning. And for that, I'm going with this Sony. Clearly I've made like, the small customizations of just my hot shoe cover, and I had to go with the silver body because the silver body is just, it's so Fuji, it's, if I could actually get this, it's just more classic for me. And I think they're really trying to go after the Fuji, typing or styling with this camera. But like I said, the viewfinder, it's probably one of the main complaints on the A7C. The A7C2 is better because I played with an A7C before, but it's not like my XH2. It's just not as good. The screen is pretty good. It's not as bright, but at the end of the day, like I'm not looking at the viewfinder or the screen on this camera. I'm looking at the output of the camera, and this camera is amazing. I kind of regret not getting it sooner. I should have, because I've gone through a bunch of different cameras on this channel so far, but that's what makes the whole journey, more exciting. So check out some of these photos that I took over the course of the past week. Let me know your thoughts. I was doing a lot more of one. I did, Mother's Day yesterday and just did some photos of my nieces, as well as over the past week, I've been working with a wrap and tint shop for cars, and I've had the opportunity to shoot some McLarens and Audis and just some really cool JDM cars, as well as some old Land Rovers. So I think the photo quality is really, really great on this. Clearly, there's always going to be better gear, but I wanted to get something that I would use consistently. And at the end of the day, that's what I'm going to say is get the gear that you like, test it out beforehand. Don't do stupid things like I do and just buy cameras because you think they look cool, or a YouTuber or TikToker or Instagram, any content creator tells you that this is the next best thing. I will say, this is the next best thing. This is awesome. I love this camera, but it doesn't replace my Fujis. It just has a different use case, and the camera that you buy is dependent on the use case. So in short, just to wrap it up here, Sony A7C2, this is my newest camera, paired with the 24 to 50 2.8 from Sony. This is a killer combo. It's a great travel setup. Is it pocket friendly? Absolutely not. But does it fit in a bag that I carry with me all the time? It sure does. So for me, this is great. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your questions. Let me know your experience with either this lens or this camera or this combo. Always happy to chime in down in the comments. And once again, if you're new here, welcome to the channel. If you're returning, welcome back. Great to see you again. Hope everybody has a great rest of your week.